Now, we all know the massive influence that 1978's Halloween had on the entire slasher subgenre. And, you know, it's one thing to be influenced, even maybe pay homage, but then there is just blatant ripping off. And we're gonna discuss a movie called Offerings from 1989. I just watched this movie today for the first time, and I couldn't wait to jump in the chair and talk about it. So anyway, let's review Offerings. Let's go. Offerings stars Loretta Lee Bowman, Elizabeth Green, and is directed by Christopher Reynolds. What's up, guys? It's deep cut slasher review time. Pretty much my favorite types of reviews to do. Just love digging into these deep cut slashers, just because the feedback I always get is, wow, I've never heard of this movie. Thank you for recommending it, or maybe not recommending it. But most of them I recommend, even if they're like kind of bad slashers, there's still some entertainment value there. The movie we're going to discuss today, Offerings, definitely has entertainment value.
Somebody let me out! Somebody help me!
I don't think you'll be able to look away from the screen. It's not a good movie at all, like at all. But I had to talk about it after watching the movie, okay? So looking forward to diving into this. And first off, from a physical media standpoint, and I think in my next live stream, I got to talk more about physical media because of what just happened with Best Buy and all that. But again, this was a movie. It is not available on streaming. I think it was on Amazon Prime not too long ago, maybe a year ago, something like that. But it's nowhere to be found right now on streaming. If you want this movie, the only way you can get it is an out-of-print Blu-ray or DVD. Or VHS, you know, pick your poison. I'd seriously thought about throwing down $50 on the Blu-ray today. It can be found on Amazon. Maybe I'll do it before I release this so you guys don't beat me to it. But, I mean, case in point, guys, this is the effect that we are going to see. Will this movie ever come to streaming again? Who knows? Maybe not. You know, is there an interest in any kind of big corporation that puts out these streaming services to want a movie like Offerings on their streaming service, knowing that they'll get maybe 2 people a month that want to stream it? Probably not. So physical media, wow, guys, it's coming. So yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and buy that. But anyway, first off, let's give you a quick plot synopsis. This is an escaped mental patient. He is a child at the beginning of the movie. He does not speak whatsoever. And then he goes into a mental institution. And then a good bit of time later, he escapes from the mental institution and he hunts down these teenagers one by one and kills them. There's also this psychiatrist that is very interested in him. He learns of his escaping and he wants to try to put an end to this madness. Does that sound really familiar to you guys? By the way, the score in this movie, it's iconic. It's so wonderful sounding. It has almost like a metronome type feel to it. When you get into the final act, you'll get like this is the first time I've ever heard this. It goes like this, kind of like din 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 din. I was like, wow, that's so original. I love that. Yeah, so great score too. So yeah, this movie is not Halloween. Can you believe everything I just told you is flat out true? Sure, there are some differences in the story that I avoided telling you in that plot synopsis to kind of hammer at home how similar this movie is to Halloween, and we'll get into all that. I mean, I'm just gonna put this on the table right now. This is a blatant, and I mean blatant, ripoff of Halloween. You know, what's the difference between a ripoff and an homage or just having influence? Hell, I think every slasher movie that came out in the 80s was influenced by Halloween. Not every, but just most of them were. Sean Cunningham literally told Victor Miller, let's rip off Halloween. You know, that's a direct quote from Victor Miller. And who could blame him with the money that movie made? But Most people look at that influence as a loving type of thing. Why wouldn't you try to capitalize on what is successful? It's done to this day still. But then there's RIPOFF, where we're literally taking the actual score and maybe changing one note on it sometimes. We're taking a killer that doesn't speak whatsoever. And, you know, and I'll cut them some slack on that one. I mean, Final Exam has a similar killer with this movie. But just the killer's nature, that we start off the story with him being a child, to fill in the gaps there. He has a friend by the name of Gretchen, and she's kind to him. And always be kind to those weird kids, okay? That's a little lesson. Teach your kids that. But all the other bullies, they were picking on him, and eventually an accident happens and he falls down this well. Now, this is the part that is pretty similar to Prom Night, because it's a bunch of kids picking on another kid and he falls. So there's definitely some other influences there. I mean, you got to change your story up a little bit. So in this movie, it's 10 years later, not 15 years later. He escapes from the mental institution. And by the way, he just walks right out. That institution has the worst security I've ever seen in my entire life, okay? When he gets to the fence, the security fence, yeah, he gets electrocuted, and then he's able to climb over it. But still, I mean, he kills one nurse and then just walks right out of the facility. But, you know, we got a story to tell, right? And we got to get from A to B. But also, when he gets to, you know, back to his hometown, his motive here in this movie is to kill all of those bullies and give an offering of a body part from each of his victims to Gretchen, the girl that was kind to him. You got this sheriff, Sheriff Chisholm. I think Sheriff Chisholm is the best character in the movie in terms of like acting and I guess filling in the plot gaps, along with the psychiatrist. But I mean, the psychiatrist is easily a discount Loomis in the worst fashion.
You think there's a chance he'll come back here? I really don't know.
But Sheriff Chisholm does have some funny moments. Hell, one of my favorite scenes in the movie was with this little kid that's actually hanging out at the killer's house, and the sheriff is there, and the kid's just being an asshole. And the sheriff's like cutting him some slack, and then the sheriff, he asks him his name, and he tells him his name is Ben Dover.
What's your name, son?
Ben?
What's your last name?
Dover, sir.
Ben, I want you to stay out of trouble, you understand?
Yes, sir.
Now get out of here.
And this movie does have some fun, tongue-in-cheek moments throughout. You got this deputy by the name of Buddy that, you know, this performance by this actor was like, let's just be completely silly and ridiculous and Barney Fife-ish, and that's what he does. I mean, he's only in the movie for, you know, a couple scenes.
Sheriff, hell, I'm on those girls like stink on a skunk.
You definitely have some out of left field humor that you don't expect. It just kind of pops up in the middle of nowhere. Now, the killer's name is John Radley. They explain why he can, like, say, get shot by a gun and not really feel anything. They get a little bit scientific with this movie in terms of the brain. When he fell, he had some brain damage, and I guess it damaged the part of the brain that feels pain.
Some recent research into serial killers indicates this area of the brain, the limbic system, has suffered damage when they were children.
Which I think kind of hurts the movie, but who cares, because it's a blatant Halloween ripoff anyway. But, you know, you don't even want to compare this to the original Halloween, right? That movie was just beautifully directed by John Carpenter, and he succeeded in making Michael Myers just a really creepy killer, and I think it worked because he didn't really tell you why he was the way he was. He just killed Judith for no reason whatsoever, and that's what made it effective. So this one, they do try to explain why he is the way he is. When he gets to town as an adult, he literally kills some birds, some like ducks or whatever. You know, another comparison was you had Myers eating dogs. He literally digs up his mother's grave. You know, and you're going to get tired of me giving you side-by-side comparisons of Halloween, but that's what this movie is, you know, and you kind of want to mention as many of them as you can think, and I'm sure there's probably another half a dozen that I haven't even mentioned yet. The big one, and this is the last one I'll mention as far as comparison goes, because I think you've already heard enough, is the score. And this is where it almost gets criminal. because there are musical cues that are the exact same as John Carpenter's. I think it makes it even worse when you take one note off of the cue just to try to make it your own, but that makes it even more noticeable. It's almost better to actually just you might as well use the Halloween theme. But to be fair, I will say there are a couple of musical cues in this that are different enough from Halloween, although they do still have the same vibe. The opening note of the movie, I think it's a 5/4 time, even though it's not the exact same as the Halloween theme. It has that cadence. Now, it is interesting to give the killer his own unique little quirk that I guess other killers don't have. Like the reason the movie's called Offerings is because he's giving body parts to Gretchen. And there's a plot point in this movie where the girls are having their like little get together with their boyfriends, and they have this pizza come over, and the sausage doesn't taste right, and they're like, we didn't order sausage, so that's kind of a hint that he actually put body parts on the pizza. How they couldn't tell that those were body parts, I don't know. Now, one big pro I will give this movie is I definitely liked Loretta Lee Bowman as Gretchen. I think her acting was serviceable for the most part. Not great, not even good, but for slasher movies, quite serviceable. Hell, you could even say that Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in the original Halloween, we're not talking Oscars here, okay? And I think it's not quite that good, but if she had a good director kind of guiding her a little bit, she would have gotten there, I think. But, you know, she has the look, you know, she's also got this like midriff thing going on throughout the movie that doesn't hurt. More importantly, you just want her to survive. She's really the perfect example of a final girl because she's the one that is kind, that is, you could almost say, pure, right? Whereas all her friends were bullies when they were kids. Now, the kill scenes in this movie, I don't think they're anything to write home about. There were quite a few moments where I'm just begging the movie to really give me some good payoff in terms of the violence, and it just is never really there. You get cutaways, or sometimes you'll just get like the aftermath. Rarely do you actually see the kill scene. Tom Savini did not work on this movie, okay? Let's just put it that way. And they're definitely going for more of a tension type thing. And it does work, to be fair, especially in the final act. There is a really great freaking sequence in the final act when they first reveal the killer and he's holding one of his victims' head. I really loved that scene because I'd almost kind of given up on the movie. And then this scene happens, and then the big final chase. And the movie elevated quite a bit. So it's a kick-ass final act, if I gotta be honest. So I guess it worked better in the tension department than it did in the actual kills. There's definitely some blood in the movie, but like I said, you don't see the act happening in real time. There's a fun scene where you got this character in a vice, and the killer, he's trying like a chainsaw, and he's trying some other items, but nothing's really working for him, so he ends up just taking a hammer and hitting the handle of the vice and just crushing the guy's head. But then all you see is a shadow. It made me think of like Sleepaway Camp, how you see like the shadow of the victim instead of the actual victim itself. You know, I get it. They didn't have much of a practical effects budget in this movie. I think that's obvious. There's some stuff there, like the body parts that she sees, but that's pretty much a trip to Spirit Halloween, even though Spirit Halloween wasn't back there, you know, for the little body parts. And some fake blood, right? What is that syrup they use to make fake blood? I forget. Last thing I'll talk about, director Christopher Reynolds. I have never been able to find any kind of interview with him. There's very little, if any, in the way of like behind the scenes information. I scoured the internet looking for stuff. I would love to see an interview with this guy just to find out what his mindset was when he wrote this script and put it all together. You know, because even without the score, it's still a blatant ripoff. But when you have the score in there, it's almost a crime. But I would still love to hear from this guy and, you know, what was on his mind. I think the obvious answer is, you know, let's make a Halloween ripoff, a slasher. You know, because horror movies, slasher movies, they cost, I guess, the least to do. But why this late in the game too? 1989. Okay, this is 11 years after Halloween. At this point, the slasher genre had pretty much died anyway. I'm just interested in learning more about the backstory of this movie. If any of you guys know more than I told you in the backstory, I would love to hear it, to be honest. I would love a full-on making of doc of this movie. I will give it a low humdrum, just because I got some entertainment value in that awesome final act. But have you guys seen Offerings? Let me know down in the comments. There's a few movies called Offerings. This one's 1989, okay? So if you're looking for it, that's the one to look for, all right? So let me know down in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, Woody Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums and on my socials. Support me on Patreon, buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Drumdum out.